In this video, we look at Ken Kratz from the popular show Making a Murderer. The show Making a Murderer definitely qualifies as one with a lot of controversy. It was meant to be a show detailing a specific criminal and all that went into that person doing what they did. But it wasn't exactly the most accurate of shows in the eyes of many, and it caused even more problems once it aired, especially for the prosecutor known as Ken Kratz.
Stephen Avery does then, while Teresa is still begging for her life, as he hands the knife to the 16-year-old boy and instructs him to cut her throat.
So what went wrong? And who should be blamed for all that went down with it? Allow us to show you Ken Kratz, Making a Murderer, then and now. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Making a Murderer Breakdown. For those who haven't seen the two-part series on Netflix, here's a breakdown for you. The show, Making a Murderer, is about the story of Stephen Avery, a man from Manitowoc County, Wisconsin, who served 18 years in prison for the wrongful conviction of sexual assault and attempted murder of Penny Bjornson, a very serious set of crimes to be wrongfully convicted of. But wait, it's not over, because he was charged again in 2005 and convicted in 2007 for the murder of Teresa Halbach.
You know, we're all victims. You know, and they just won't leave us alone. They just keep it up and keep it up.
Then there was Brendan Dassey, who was accused and convicted as an accessory in the murder. The first season details the years of 1985 and 2007, portraying Avery's 1985 arrest and conviction, his subsequent exoneration and release in 2003, the civil lawsuit Avery filed against Manitowoc County, his 2005 arrest, and his ensuing trial and conviction in 2007. It also depicts the arrest, prosecution, and conviction of Avery's nephew, Brendan Dassey, focusing on the accusations of coercion and attorney ineptitude, something that sadly has become more of a theme in cases in recent years and relooking at old cases. The second season explores the aftermath of both Avery's and Dassey's convictions, focusing on Avery's and Dassey's families, the investigation, and findings of Avery's new attorney, Kathleen Zellner, which corroborates the thesis of Avery's innocence and him being framed for the murder of Halbach, and Dassey's legal team's efforts in arguing in court that his confession was coerced by prosecutors. While it debuted in 2015, it was filmed over the course of 10 years, with the filmmakers moving back and forth from New York City to Wisconsin during filming. Netflix was very strongly invested in this series, to the extent that they let the first episode be released for free on multiple platforms, so people would check it out and be interested in coming back for the rest of the episodes. To be clear, that's not something Netflix is known to do. But at this point, you might be wondering, well, wait a minute, where is Ken Kratz? Don't worry, we're getting to him. The man known as Ken Kratz was a very key part in the case that was depicted in Making a Murderer, and his history is a bit colorful, as you will find out. Ken Kratz worked in the La Crosse, Wisconsin City Attorney's Office as an assistant city attorney from 1985 to 1987. He served as an assistant district attorney in La Crosse County, Wisconsin from 1987 to 1992, and he went and prosecuted a wide variety of cases involving drugs, families, and more. Kratz was appointed district attorney of Calumet County by Wisconsin Governor Tommy Thompson in 1992. He was the only applicant for the post. He served as president of the Wisconsin District Attorneys Association in 1996. Kratz chaired the Wisconsin Victims' Right Council in 1993, as well as its successor, the Wisconsin Crime Victims' Rights Board, from 1998 to 2010. So, as you can see, he wasn't just a random person assigned to the case we're about to get to. He was someone who was experienced and had a variety of roles within the law, making him more than qualified to handle big cases. Or at least, that's what he and many others would say. Kratz was appointed special prosecutor and headed the investigation and prosecutions of Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey in neighboring Manitowoc County in 2005. Manitowoc County had recused its officials because it was being sued by Avery for wrongful conviction following his exoneration in 2003. Kratz gained convictions of both defendants in trials in 2007. Avery was sentenced to life without parole, Dassey, then 17, was sentenced to life imprisonment with no parole before he reached the age of 56. Dassey's conviction was provisionally overturned in August 2016, subject to appellate review. As for Making a Murderer, Kratz did not cooperate with the producers or interviewers in the series. He later criticized them, saying they had left out key pieces of evidence.
To suggest to millions of people around the world that Stephen Avery was the victim of some kind of tampering or something.
After the release of the series, Kratz began receiving death threats. It got so bad that people actually went to his Yelp page of all things to go and criticize him even more, based on what they saw him do in the series. That is not the way to handle things, for the record. And yet, it once again shows just how strongly the viewers felt about the case, based on what they had seen. But as a certain someone would state, just because you see something framed a certain way, doesn't mean that is exactly what happened. His thoughts on the series. Although he was not a part of the series, that doesn't mean he didn't have things to say about it, because he was sent questions about what the series depicted, and he had plenty to say. In an email, Kratz said the documentary series got it wrong. He concluded by saying Netflix should either provide an opportunity for rebuttal or alert viewers that this series was produced by and for the defense of Stephen Avery and contains only the opinion and theory of the defense team. He then went on to list 9 reasons why he felt Avery was still 100% guilty, and went on to blast those who called him and his colleagues unfit to prosecute. There is more, of course, but I'm not a DA anymore. I have no duty to show what nonsense the planting defense is. I have no duty to show what nonsense the planting defense is, or why the documentary makers didn't provide these uncontested facts to the audience. You see, these facts are inconsistent with the claim that these men were framed. You don't want to muddy up a perfectly good conspiracy movie with what actually happened, and certainly not provide the audience with the evidence the jury considered to reject that claim.
Now that Mr. Avery's DNA is found on that particular key, I was left to question whether or not people would have me believe.
Finally, I engaged in deplorable behavior, sending suggestive text messages to a crime victim in October 2009. I reported myself to the OLR. My law license was thereafter suspended for 4 months. I have withstood a boatload of other consequences as a result of that behavior, including loss of my prosecution career. However, I've enjoyed sobriety from prescription drug use for over 5 years now, and refuse to be defined by that dark time of my life. All of this occurred years after the Avery case was concluded. I'm unclear why the defense-created documentary chose to include this unpleasantness in this movie, especially if the filmmakers had no agenda to cast me as a villain. I am not a victim in that whole texting scandal. Then again, it's exceedingly unfair to use that to characterize me as morally unfit. To identify Lieutenant Lank, Sergeant Colburn, and myself as being responsible for the framing and knowing false murder conviction of Stephen Avery is irresponsible and inconsistent with a consideration of all the evidence presented. Netflix should either provide an opportunity for rebuttal or alert the viewers that this series was produced by and for the defense of Stephen Avery and contains only the opinion and theory of the defense team. When the second season of Making a Murderer came out, Kratz was again asked about it, and he felt the same way as he did with Season 1. The second season, unfortunately, uses the same playbook as Season 1: deceptive editing, omission of crucial evidence, and personal attacks against the prosecutors, cops, and Teresa's friends, which combine for a very one-sided view. He went on to insult the defense team's evidence that was showed in Season 2. And as for those who still hated him, I find it unsettling that I remain the lightning rod for the vitriol and hate stirred up by this TV show. I'm the one attorney no longer involved in either case. I didn't make these men murderers, I convicted them. If nothing else, Making a Murderer helped to prove that the legal system absolutely needs to be put under a microscope. Because regardless of whether you believe that Ken Kratz was responsible for railroading the 2 convicted people, this kind of railroading has happened in the past. To the extent that many, many people have been sent to jail for years or even decades for crimes that they did not commit. Corruption does exist, And whether this case is one of those times is honestly up to those who watched the case unfold and how you personally feel things happened. So, what do you think? What do you think of this look at Making a Murderer and how Ken Kratz came off after the 2 parts of the series were released? Do you feel that Ken Kratz should be held accountable for what was shown? Let us know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time on the channel.